Okay, students. Today we will see the database system environment and purpose of the database system. In the last class, we have seen the introductory part of the database. What is the database and what is the database system and what is the database management system. So these are the fundamental definition of each and every terms we have discussed in the last class properly. But today we will see the database management system, environment we can say, and the purpose of the database system. Why we are using the database system? That is a big question we should have. So let us understand all these things. Let us explore all the idea properly with help of the some diagrams and with the help of some content. Let us have some overview of the database management system definition. So here we have a database management system definition once again over here. As we know, a database management system is a collection of the interrelated data, or we can say interrelated databases, and all the information which are stored in our database, which will be accessed by the some rule and regulations. And what are the rule and regulations that we can use as by the practically with the help of the query language. So the collection of the data usually referred to as the database, as I told you so many times, so it is also written over here. So that contains some information which leads to the organization. So the primary goal or the primary aim of the database management system to provide the way to store the information and to retrieve the database as our required information. So from this point we have to start the database management system, and this is a concise term of the database management system we have over here. After this, what are the various applications where we can use? Without knowing its application, there will be no sense to understand this database management system course. So let me explore all the idea with help of my points. One is a banking. So in the banking sector, we can do and we can see this database management system is also applicable. Like withdraw the amount, deposit the amount, whatever you want to, whatever the operation you want to perform in the banking sector, you can do. So in the banking sector, bank is not dealing with the thousand data or lakh of data. It is also dealing with the crores of data. So banking is the biggest application of the database management system. And keep in mind, you can have the multiple accounts, but your account ID will be recognized by the unique pin, and that is to be identified by the some key approach, and we will see about in detail manner. Next one we have the airlines. So in the airlines, we will keep the detail of the flight details and passenger details. So we can connect the flight and passenger by the booking. So all the things which are applicable over here in the airlines. Next we have the industry. So in the case of the industry, if we need to store the data of the industry, which production, what is the production is going on and how many production I have to do. So all the details are applicable here in the form of the database. So as a record I can keep. So in the banking and the airline industry and any university, if I need to see all the data in the future, then I can see without any problem. So from this perspective, I can say the database will be used to retrieve the data in future whenever it's required. And we can see all the details what the person use the data. In the selling department and the marketing purpose, of course, the finance and telecommunications. So all these things are there is application where we can use a database. University is the biggest application, biggest area where we can use. So we can keep all the students record, faculties record, employees record, staff record, and other details like the non-living entity details. We can also we can also keep. What are the non-living entities? Just chair details, table details, and rooms details, and number of the face we have, number of tube lights we have, number of the windows in such rooms we have, number of floors. So all these information also maintained by our database. So these are the basic applications we have to keep in. So you can use a brain to explore an idea, and you can write the other application of the database where you can write. Okay, so anything you just need to explore, just anyone who is remembering any other application except to these, so you can share your idea.
Sir,
Anyone?
research.
Okay, research is the biggest application because okay. So could you explore your idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you explore your idea in detail
Sir,
way?
in research, like in a new research or any type of the new data has been extracted by the experiments or the things they perform, they store their data and then क्या कहते हैं?
Okay, no issue. In the research lab and research organization, they are keeping the data of the past result which is coming from the previous experiment or previous research. So as a outcomes, we will keep the data. So by using the previous outcome, we will see the correct outcomes, and we will can make the comparison between the previous outcomes and new outcomes to see the which result is better. So database provide all the details. Yeah, definitely. This could be the one kind of the area. So you can use a brain or you can use an idea to explore the various applications of database management systems. So that
For
these are
example,
the yes, tell me.
for example, maintaining criminal records, etc. We can use
Yeah,
database.
of course. Definitely in the for the security purpose, if we need to keep the record of the criminal. So in the USA, what is happening there in USA? FBI will keep the all the data of the all the criminals. So that is the biggest database we can say, of course, which is maintaining by the USA country. Of course, I'm 100% agree. Yes, any other one who is remembering?
Sir, it can interact with software applications.
Yes, okay. So internet basically is different thing. So if you have just different ideas, you can share.
So
Sir,
DBM
in
is commonly
sports,
used
there
as
are
knowledge bases.
Okay, the sports is a good example. Just if I need to see the score of the particular cricketer or particular sports person, what he or she has done in the past, so we can definitely got in the data over the Wikipedia pages we are reading. So immediately the some sports person just updating some information. So definitely after some time we will be able to see the update data of the particular specified sports person. Definitely it is also true. So there is
So
a yes, tell me.
it can be used as a knowledge base.
Yeah, knowledge based knowledge based database we can say, of course. So knowledge, we can't interpret the knowledge. We can say that is used for the database, but we can use such database for knowledge interpretation. So knowledge based database we can give the name. Yes, definitely, no issue. Okay. So in the examination, if I ask you the question, just write the application. So you can write your own application, but that should be meaningful. So meaningful should be, okay, the sense should be there. So there are not a limited applications. We have a lots of applications where the database will play important. Okay. So now this is clear to all right now. The application of a database management system is clear to all.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
good. So now this is the point where we have the database system versus the file system. As I told you so many times, database is better than the file system. But how I can say? So with help of this image, I can prove. So over this diagram, you can see, just let me explore this diagram with the help of the pointer. I hope it will be clear to all. Yes. So in the database system, you can say there's a database system and some departments are connected. So what are departments are connected over here? You can see there's a personal department, okay, and the other one is sales department, other one is accounting department. So all these departments details are stored into the databases. So this database contains all the details. So I can write over here. This database, this database contains contains the details of interrelated. So I can write over here interrelated data. So what are data? Employee data, customer data, selling data, inventory data, and account data. And by which I can use any database software by which, that is the database management system based application I can use to store the data. And this is our what, this is what, this is our storage device. This is what, this is our storage device. This is our storage device where all the data will be stored. Now, in the case of the file system, we are keeping the data of the employee secretary and the customers they are keeping and the selling they are keeping inventory. So in the sales department, we are keeping the file which is holding the data of the customer selling and inventory. But accounting department is a different file. So in this case, what we have three data file. I'm not writing database, I'm writing the data file. Okay, so which gives the detail of the account, employee and selling. But here all these things are not interrelated. So that's why in the traditional file system we are keeping the data only, but we can't make the relationship. But with the help of the database binary system, it is also possible to make the relationship, to maintain the data in a one part, and we can make the relationship. So employee and customer will be connected. How you can say? It of course, an employee is just looking for the marketing. Okay, so after marketing, how many customers he has? So definitely there will be a relationship between the employee and customer. And how many selling done by the particular employee? So there will be a relationship between the employee and selling. And how many customers are purchased a particular product? So there will be a relationship between the customer and selling. So overall, we can say that in the database, we can make the relationship, we can put the connections. But in the traditional file system, it is not possible. By which diagram, by this diagram, you can easily say. And I have written some terms over here. That is this database contains the details of the interrelated data. Interrelated data we have to keep in mind. But in the case of traditional file system, it does not contain the interrelations. That is a little bit difference we have to understand. So these pictures will show the differences between the database systems versus the file systems. Now it is clear to all right now? Yes, this picture is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, also sometimes when we need to duplicate files in like files, we create copies. And
Yes,
sometimes when we need to update them, we may forget to update certain copies. But database
yes.
system solves that problem as well.
Yeah, this is a brilliant statement you're telling me right now. In the database management system, we can't remove the duplicacy, but as a preliminary, we can say duplicacy will be applicable. But if you're following the some rules, a database cannot have the duplicacy. If it is having that, such a database is known as the bad databases. So as a good person, as a good things or good databases, a database should not contain the duplicate records. That is a big point we have to keep in mind. But in the file system, traditional file system, we are not using any constant rules. And duplicacy maybe, and it increases the unnecessary interface complexity. That is a big point. You are on the right track. Yes. Okay. So anyone who have any doubt right now? Is it clear to all? The difference between the database system versus the file system? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good. So now this is the database system environment. So what is a database system environment and from where we have to start? So let me explore to all once again. Here I am writing some statement which are necessary to write over here. See, all these terms which are known as the component of the database system. So these are known as the components of the database. So what are the component of the database systems? I can write over here database system. I can write here database system. So one is the hardware. Without the hardware, you can't say the information cannot be stored virtually. Information will be stored on the physical device, that is a disk could be. So hardware is required. And some software is required by which the information will be manipulated or which will be stored on the disk. So operating system will be the software, that is system software of course. DB-based will be the application software and some other application by which we can store the data. And as a people or we can say the user. So as a be a user who just need to operate something, so a people is required, or we can say the multiple people are required, and some users we can say. And in procedures, and these procedures are defining the some rules. What are the rules you are using to store the data? Suppose my age is 40. That is not true, but I'm making just an example. suppose my age 40 and I'm putting the 2 or 3, that should not be meaningful, because a student cannot be a part of any university who belong to the age 2 years old. So that is not a meaningful. That is the value we can put, but we have some constraint. So constraint will be applicable and something we have to keep in mind properly. So what are the rules by which we can store the data? And what are the information? So this is our data, and this data is known as our information, and which is required to store on our disk. So in database environment, we have some components. With the help of these components, we can understand the database environment, or we can say this is the database environment. I was not talking about the database architecture. Database system architecture we will see by the our fourth book, so we have no problem, but let us understand the basic thing. What is the database system environment? So in the database environment are compromising by the or consisted by the 5 different components. Those are the hardware, software, people, processor, and data. So as a system admin will connect to the hardware directly and directly where the information to be stored. So as a database administrator, as a being a high privileged person, I will manage all the things. So there are some terms we have to keep in mind. So I'm just pointing out the some points over here. A database admin will manage. A database admin will manage all the information on the by the system. But keep in mind, it will write the some database admin will write the some codes or some enforcement based utility with the help of the some procedure. So he or she will write the some procedure on the our for our database, and some standard he or she has to use. Suppose I'm going back to the my previous example. The age cannot be less than 25 years old if a student is taking the admission in an university. Then keep in mind the age cannot be less than the 5 years or 20 or 5 years, something like that. So this is a constraint I am putting into the my database. So what I have to, as a DB, I am writing the some constraint, and that is what I am applying the some rules. So that is what that is to be done by the DB, and this is a responsibility. And after this, after writing some procedure as an end user, as a we can say this is a normal user as a people, okay, and this could be a people. We can say end user, okay. This people could be the end people who can use the a database by the application program, and this application program could be anything. This end user doesn't require to how to write the code and what is the code written to use such part. So as a being a student, you want to see your attendance. You don't know how the BTOP application was written and how the database admin, how the admin will allow to you see the only attendance or only. So as a faculty, I can upload the attendance, I can see the attendance, but as a student, you can able to see only your attendance only. You are not required to amendment, you are not required to update anything on the our BTOP application by the BTOP application. So BTOP is an application by which you can just able to see. So the students are being as a end user. So here I can write over here students. Okay. So as a students, just able to see data only. They are not allowed to do anything. So this is the end user. But there are some in the database environment, some other users and some other people, those known as a programmer. So the programmer will write the special program of the application for the application. So the VTOP is basically designed by the some different application. So you don't know as an end user, we don't know who have written the code and what is the language they have used, we don't know, and it is not required to us. As an end user, I have to understand what is the application I'm using. So I just familiar only the beta point. So that is the point you have to keep in mind. So as a programmer, we don't know what is the thing, but programmer will write the application program, and these are the programmer will known as the, we can say, the special user, special user. They write the program for the application program, and the application program will be accessed by the database. But this will be application program will access by the database, but This data will be accessed by the end user only the based on the constraint. So access the database based on the some constraint. So this is the point we have to keep in mind. So overall, database system will compromising by the will be integrated by the all these kind of the various things, some hardware, some software, some rules, some data, what we have to use. So this is just a simple environment of the database system we have to keep in mind, and this could be the important point. So let me explain this point here and right. So database designer, what is the role of the database designer? Database designer will design the database. Okay, so database designer will design the database. So design the database can be done by the graphical way. So ER diagram is the best model. So we can say ER diagram is the best model. This is the best model for designing purpose. So as we have seen what is the ER diagram in the previous class, ER diagram is entity relationship diagram which defines the relationship between the two different entities. So how a student can communicate to the faculty and how faculty communicate to the student. So that's the important thing, that is course. And how a faculty can communicate to the staff. So based on the just required relationship. So based on the required relation, the faculty and staff will be in a relationship. That is the point we have to keep in mind. So in the database, we have to identify the appropriate relationship, and that is the beauty of the ER model, and we will see in detail manner, no issue. So this is just idea about the database system. Now it is clear to all right now. So each and every term is written over here. I have written also over here. So tell me right now, any doubt over here?
No, sir.
So when we talk about the database administrator
Yeah,
and the
okay.
end users, so the end users will be able to manipulate the databases that they'll create.
No. It's as an end user, if you are giving the privilege to the end user, you can just update some information. So we can say the end user could be the end user could be, but only the what are the right and privilege we are giving to the end user depends on the our privileges. But as an end user, just like a student, so you are not able to do anything. You just able to see your results. You will be able to see the data only. You are not allowed to manipulate anything. So depend on the privilege. But as a faculty, I can't change my profile. I can't change anything. So I don't have some privilege, but I have the privilege to mark the attendance. I have the privilege to give the marks to the student. So that depend on the privilege. As a being end user, I have some privilege. So depend on the thing, depend on the requirement. We can say the admin is giving the some privileges, but admin will keep all the privileges. That is the point.
So
Yes,
only
now.
admin can edit the data in the
Yes,
database. Okay.
admin means we're talking about the super user who can do anything, who can deal the, who can create the user, who can create the new data, who can create the anything. But as an end user just able to see data only, or whatever the privilege he or she has use only. That is a point. So definitely it is true.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Any other question over here?
So sir, faculty is also a kind of end user with some facilities.
Yes, of course, definitely. And faculties in the B-top, faculty is also the end user with help of some facilities you have on the right track. Yes, now,
So,
yes, tell me.
sir, here the entity. This is this the diagram of entity relation or like entity relation diagram is related to data and the relationship with each field.
Yes, of course. See, this is just a diagram or an environment which shows that database designer is itself is a post in industry where database designer will design the database in the graphical tool and pass on to the database analyst. And database analyst will analyze the data, the database which is designed by the database designer. If there's some amendments required, then pass on to the back or pass on or back to the database designer, and then will update some data. And final approving from the database analyst, it passed to the programmer. The programmer will understand the what are the ER diagram he or she has used, and based on the entity and relationship, the data programmer will transform, or we can say the map the ER model into the our physical structure. So on which the table will be created. So as an end user, I am able to see data only, but how it is connected. So there is change, there is sequence. So this is the thing which is not done by the single person or single hand. It is manipulated. It is maintained by the various person. So that is the point. So we always think, and it seems to us it is a very simple thing we can do, and it is done by the simple way. But it is not an easy job. So it is also dealing with the many things. Yes, tell me right now. Yes, any doubt over here?
Sir,
Yes, tell me.
so as you said, the database administrator is the super user who can do anything with the database.
Yes,
So what is the role of the system administrator?
yes, my dear, the system administrator itself is also known as the database administrator. See, system administration means the maintain the or create the various database user. So that is the point. A system admin can create the multiple database administrator. So in a system, if you're having the multiple database administration, we can do. So as a system admin, system admin will be the one person, one admin. It can create the multiple database administrators. If you are creating the multiple database administrator DBA, then the multiple DBA has the right or privilege to do so anything. That is the point. So this point we have to keep in mind. In our database system, we will have only the one system admin, and other will be the database admin. But database and the data under the database admin, we can have the other users, and there could be the database designer and program end users, programmers. We can have. This is the point. So in this, no problem. And what are the roles and what are the features which is used by the database admin? We'll see. No issue. So that is the point. So that's why the system admin is also written in the or designed or marked by the secretary. The system admin. There will be the one system admin only, and there could be the n number of the system database admin we can have. Yes, of course, but it has own privilege. It has own rights.
Okay, sir.
Okay, just like a simple example, while Gmail login in the Gmail. So as a login in the Gmail, there is only the one system admin, but other could be the database admin. So in the database admin, just we serve country wise. I'm dividing, suppose that. So I'm dividing the country wise, just like the Belgium, Germany, and India. So the database admin of the India database admin, he or she can see the mails of the other users. That is the point. So to why it is dividing, why we are doing so, because the troubleshooting can be done in simple way. So this is the point we have to keep in mind. So this is the environment of the system database. What is the environment and what are the various kinds of users are available? That is the point we have to keep in mind. Yes, now tell me, is it clear to all right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so after this point, we have, so I have already discussed this point. So this is only the theoretical portion, so no need to discuss more over here. So I'm just skipping this slide. So with the help of our content or with the diagram we have discussed. So this is your notes purpose. You can utilize this slide as a notes purpose. So no need to discuss more over here. And we have already discussed this point. Typically, file and processing system is supported by the conventional operating system. And yeah, this is the purpose of the database system we have to keep. But before that, just let me see. It is required to tell. No need to discuss. Yes, all these things we have already discussed by the our database environment. So let us move to this point right now. Purpose of the database system. Okay, this slide is visible to all.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here I have already marked by the various things over here. So we have to understand the thing properly. Let us explore all the things in detail way, step by step, and that is an important point. The purpose of the database system is more important. Without knowing the database system purpose, you can't say you are learning the database system properly. So in any organization, the file processing system is applicable, but it also having the many disadvantages. And so seeing the or having by the various disadvantages, we have to understand the what are the advantages or what are the purpose of using the database system in any organization. It doesn't mean it is an industry organization or it is education environment. It doesn't mean we have to understand what is the purpose of the database system. So first point, we have a data redundancy and inconsistency. So what we are observing, what are disadvantages of the file processing system? So in the file processing system, data redundancy, that is duplicacy, can be, and inconsistency will be, because the data can be inconsistent. In the not that I am putting the age 1 2 3. So that is a meaningful. That could not be meaningful. A student cannot be more than 100 years. Suppose that I am just assuming. So if I am putting the value 1 2 3, that is okay. It is also acceptable. But I'm putting the alphabetical value just like the one O N E. That is not meaningful. Why? Because age of the any person cannot be alphabetical, and that alphabets or letters, it could be represented by the only the numbers only. A person age cannot be the 34.89. Is it not a feasible value? And the 34 you are putting, that's okay. But some things we have to keep in mind. So anyone, are you, do you have your age 34.89? Yeah, 24.56? No, that is a meaningless data. So that is the point we have to keep in mind. So inconsistency could not be applicable, but in the traditional file system it is also applicable. So having seen all these disadvantages part, we have to understand the our purpose of the database system. So why we are using the database system? So what are the purpose? So that is the point. Data redundancy and inconsistency we have. So this is should not be happen in our database. That is the point. Now this first point is clear. The first
Yes,
part
sir.
is clear. Yeah. So any doubt over here? So please step by step you can ask me. So this is clear to all right now. The first one is clear, data redundancy and inconsistency.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, next is difficulty in accessing data. So now I'm on this point, difficulty in the accessing data. Just imagine, suppose I have the 10 lakh of the student data. If I'm using the conventional or traditional file system, I have to, if the searching is different way, but except to searching, if I try to move 99th or 999th positions of the data need to read, then what I have to do? I have to start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So sequential access I have to do. What is the problem in the our traditional data file system? This I can write over here. In the traditional file system, we have the access method. That is a point we have to keep in mind. This is a part of the operating system, so you have to understand. In the traditional file system, we have to use the sequential file access method. Okay, so this is a point we have to understand. But in the case of the database management system, if we need to read such data, we can directly jump with the help of the index file access method. And that is the biggest advantage of using the database file system or database system rather than the file system, traditional file system. So difficulty in access data, we have to so. So difficulty in access data is coming from the sequential file system. If talking about the notepad file, I'm creating. If I'm creating, suppose I have created a file in the MS Excel. In the MS Excel, we can create the multiple entries, so duplicacy will be there. So if I need to jump on the 999, suppose, so it will take much time from 1 to 999 something. It will take much time. So time consuming process we can't follow. But in the database system, we can access the direct data. We can access the direct data by the help of the direct access method or index sequential searching. So depend on the your policy, you can use the database. So that is the point we have to keep in mind. So this is the difficulty in the traditional file system we have. That is the reason we will not use this approach. That is the reason. Okay. So now it is clear to right now. In the access method we have in the traditional file system. So I can mark this support. So this access method done by the traditional file system. Okay, now this part is clear. The difficulty in accessing data, is it clear to all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And now next question we have the or next point we have over here, data isolation. The answer is hidden in this point, data isolation. Can anyone tell me right now?
So to find out a particular entry of in the database using a query.
Okay. Okay. Any other student?
So the data are not interrelated with each other.
Okay, that is a great answer I'm getting you. In the traditional file system, the interrelated data is not available or not applicable. So data isolation we can't have. So data isolation we can't do properly in the traditional file system. So this is the point. So data isolation is we have. So data should be isolated. Data should be isolated means data should not be depend on the other thing. So if I'm putting the if I'm putting the student name, I'm putting the student name. So student name will be not depend on the student's other detail. If it is so we have the dependency. And that part we will see. But data isolation is saying to us we can't use the data isolation. And difficulty in accessing data we have, data redundancy and data inconsistency we have. So here we have a data isolation. But data isolation should not be properly. That is the point. So this is the disadvantages part in the traditional file system we have. So data isolation you can understand over here. I can, in the traditional file system, I am creating a folder. In the folder, I have the text file, I have the document file. So you can easily say, is there is a relationship between the text file and document file? No. So that is a big point we have over here. But in the database management system, if you're creating a database, so all the database will be followed by the same kind of a manner. Just like example, in the MySQL, I'm creating a database. And the, what is the extension, what is the file supporting system, which is having by the XYZ database, and that is also followed by the same PQR database in the same MySQL database. But in the case of the traditional file system, if I'm creating the two different types of the file, and I am unable to isolate my data properly. So that is the point. So here we have this issue, and that was a biggest issue. And this data isolation we will see in detailed manner into the upcoming module. But fundamental thing should be clear. So data isolation is was our disadvantage in the traditional file system. So here we have this one right now. Now it is clear to all right now.
Yes, sir.
Any doubts so far? So please let me know right now. Any doubts so far you have? Yes, tell me any doubts so far you have. So please you can ask it.
No, sir.
Okay, good. So next is integrity problem. Integrity problem again we have in the traditional file system. We can't interleave the our data. Integrity problem we can say interrelation interrelated data we can say, right? I can write in short way interrelated data. So integrity problem we have in the traditional file system as we have discussed or as we have seen in the previous slides, and that is a big problem. But in the our database, if database is or the our database we have multiple databases we have, so the database should be interrelated. So that's why we have some meaning. Suppose I'm creating an XYZ database and MNO PQR, suppose like this one database, but there is no relationship. So why I created database? So that is the point. So relationship should be there, and then we have the meaningful database. So integrity a problem, it is a biggest problem in the our traditional file system. And this integrity problem we will see in detailed manner with the about the some properties, and what is the properties I will tell you, no issue. Next we have the atomicity. Next we have the atomicity. So atomicity is a simple example. I can tell you with the help of the example over here, and it is also written over here. In the atomicity problem, suppose myself I was also having the 10,000 rupees, and I'm transforming this 10,000 rupees to someone that is studying by the M. So M is my friend. So B is transferring a 25, B is having the 20,000 rupees, and 1,000 rupees he need to transfer to M friend's account. So suppose he has 1,000 rupees only, and after transferring, his account becomes as a 2,000 by adding the 1,000 rupees because getting the 1,000 rupees from the B's account. So I will have the 19,000 and M will have the 2,000. So this is the normal transaction I have done. So automatically it is saying to us, due to lacking of the integrity problem, so atomicity problem will be there, because if one transaction is failed, suppose I'm transferring the 1,000 rupees to my friend, suddenly power goes up, some transaction was failed, then this will not happen with the durability. So atomicity will be there, then while doing any transaction properly, then the value should be consistent properly. So if it is not, transaction was not done properly, then information should be rolled back into the my account. And it is really happened with the many times with the in our daily life while withdrawing the amount from the ATMs. So I'm withdrawing the 1,000 rupees from the ATMs. Okay, suddenly there was a transaction was failed. I had some balance, no issue, but transaction was failed due to some technical issue. So atomicity problem it is maintained. So atomicity problem is not is atomicity problem will be in the traditional file system due to not having by the this feature. So atomicity is basically a feature, it is a property of the database, and that is not dealing with the traditional file system. So that is why we have written over here atomicity problems. And this atomicity problem we will see in detailed manner while studying the properties. And what is the properties? A, C, I, D. A stand for the atomicity, C stand for the consistency, I stand for the isolation, and D stand for the durability. So I can write over here something over here for betterment. So just please note down this thing in your mind. A stands for the atomicity, C stand for the consistency, I stand for the isolation, and D stand for the durability. These are the four properties or four pillars of a database management system. If our database system does not support this property, it means we are not having a good database. So automation problem is coming from this example, and later part we will see no issue. And next part we have the concurrent execution. So concurrent execution can be done by the like over here. So two multiple transaction or more than the multiple transaction, more than two transactions we can handle via our database. But a traditional file system, it can, once a transaction is complete, then other files will be opened in the traditional file system. So it will take much time and it is a time consuming process. But in the case of the concurrent access anomalies or concurrent access anomaly, we will see. So in the concurrent transaction, due to the concurrence control, we can manage the multiple transactions. That is the beauty of the database system. And of course, last in the database system, we have a security. But in the case of the traditional system, anyone can get the data or no security is available. So security we can apply by the we can protect our database by giving the password protection or any kind of the biometrics protection we can do. So in your mobile, we have a contact list. This contact list itself becomes as a database. Suppose you are not applying any security features on your mobile phone. So as a unethical person, I can get the contact number of your friends without any doubt. So that is the reason. So security problem is we are having in the traditional file system, and we can't apply the security. We are not talking about the folder security feature software. That is a third-party tool. But the by default, the application must contain, by default, database must contain the security. And due to this reason, database is most demanding application in nowadays. So security features or security problems we have, concurrent access anomalies we have. Anomalies means issues. Atomicity problems we have, integrity problems we have, data isolations we have, and difficulty in access data we have, and data redundancy and data inconsistency we have in the our traditional file system. So these are the various disadvantages, and we are understanding this disadvantage as advantages we have to understand of the database. So why database system is required? So we have seen over the year all the details. Okay, so these are the 7 points we have to understand in the purpose of the database system. Now it is clear to all right now, or anything you need to ask, so please you can ask me right now.
So,
Yes,
sir,
tell me.
how concurrent access anomalies is a
Yeah,
disadvantage? Like if multiple users are allowed to access data simultaneously, so sir, it is a benefit now.
yeah, it is. You can see now, you can think is a normal way, but now keep in mind while discussing the concurrent execution, you can understand the simple example I am speaking. Suppose you have a 10,000 rupees in your account, and I have your ATM card. Or now you are not giving me ATM card to right now, no issue. Suppose you are withdrawing the 1,000 rupees from the ATM card. On the same moment, your father is depositing some amount in your bank balance. So what is happening there? Which part will be complete first? Your withdrawing part or your father's deposit operation? Which operation will be performed? So you can't justify this point. So with the help of the concurrent or multiple transaction handling approach, we can see this thing properly. So database will keep all the details properly. But in the case of the traditional file system, suppose you are withdrawing 1,000 rupees, but okay, you are withdrawing 1,000 rupees. You withdraw the 1,000 rupees, your transaction was not complete, but you got the amount. That was some issue, and that is not handled by the concurrent execution. And simultaneously your father withdraw some amount, so deposit some amount. So you will feel now after withdrawing that you are getting the some amount in use balance. So now how it is happening? So that is a big problem we have seen in the real life situation, and now this is also happened with the mate and the banking sector. So you remember some points. I'm not talking about this era. I'm talking about the 25 years ago, or maybe the 20 years ago, suppose. What happened approx 20 years ago, bank was not allowed to do any operation after the 4 p.m. If you want to visit a bank, then you are not allowed to do anything after the 4 p.m. What is the reason? Because they will do their job, the bank employee will do their job 10 to 5, and after the 4 p.m. they will not allow to do any operation. You can't withdraw or you can't deposit by the bank, from the bank. Now, so they will take 1 hour to closing time. That is the point we have. The bank is closing time is 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. It means bank manager will check all the details, how many transaction done by this bank and how many withdrawn done by the withdrawn or depositing operations done by this bank only. So at the finally they will do the closing. So after submitting the check or after doing any operation at the next day, your check will be clear. But this is the thing which change into now today's era. What is happening over here? You just suddenly you are withdrawing the amount. You will get immediately. You will immediately get an SMS. You have withdrawn the suppose XYZ amount. This is the reason, because this is the reason of the concurrent access feature. And now this is the biggest application on the banking sector. Previously, it was not done on the banking application. Previously, it was done on the only industry. But in the concurrent access transaction is done by the our system in detailed manner properly. And I will tell you the all the details concurrent access anomalies. What is the access anomalies? Insertion, deletion we have. I will tell you all the details with the help of the examples. Don't worry. Okay. So that would be the part of the fifth module. But concurrent access anomalies means we can't access the multiple transaction simultaneously. You can use the one by one. You can access, and that is to be done by the traditional. Now you are happy. Okay, everything is going perfectly. But simultaneously you can't. But this is the problem is resolved in today's era. I was talking about the 20 years ago that was not possible, but now it is changing to today's era. Now clear?
Yes, sir. So concurrent access is an advantage in a new database system, na sir?
Yes, of course, it is advantage.
Yes.
So in the concurrent access anomalies means concurrent access issues we have in the traditional file system. So that was a disadvantage. I have already
Oh, yeah.
I have
Yes,
already
yes.
underlined disadvantages. So these are the 7 disadvantages of the traditional file system, and these 7 disadvantages becomes the advantage of the database system. Now we are understanding this thing as the advantage of the database system, and these are the disadvantages of the traditional file system. Now clear? Okay, tell me right now any problem so far? Okay. So from this point, let me just move to the next part. Okay, so no problem so far. Everything is clear. So far we have
Yes.
discussed. Yeah. Okay. Good.